The night in Santa Fe, New Mexico, was a furnace of silence, heavy, electric, the kind of silence that presses on your chest until you forget to breathe. The desert wind carried the faint smell of gasoline and mesquite smoke from the far hills. Streetlights buzzed over cracked pavement as the last traces of daylight bled into a rust-colored horizon. Inside El Jardín, the most feared cantina in the city's south side, Miguel El Lobo Navarro sat alone in a corner booth, a cigarette burning to ash between his fingers. He wasn't supposed to be here, not publicly. The cartel had rules about visibility, and he was their ghost, the one they whispered about but rarely saw. Tonight, though, he'd come to settle something. His men waited nearby, silent, armed, loyal in that nervous way men are when loyalty is based on fear. The jukebox played an old George Strait song, the kind that cracked your ribs open with memory. Miguel didn't sing along. He just watched the cigarette smoke curl into the low light, thinking about how every empire, no matter how bloody, had ghosts. Then it happened. The door slammed open so hard the music skipped. Everyone turned. A boy, no older than 8, stood in the doorway barefoot, his face streaked with tears and desert dust. His t-shirt was torn. His small hand shook as he pointed toward the street, his voice raw and breaking. "They're beating my mother." No one moved. The cantina froze. Glasses stopped midair. The only sound was the boy's sobs echoing against the wood and tile. Miguel didn't blink. He just studied the boy, thin, wild-eyed, breathing like a hunted thing. A dozen memories flickered behind Miguel's eyes, but his face stayed carved from stone. One of his lieutenants, Raul, started to rise. "Boss, I'll handle." Miguel lifted a hand. "No." The word cut through the air like a blade. He stood slowly, the leather of his jacket creaking, and crossed the room. Each step was deliberate, measured. The men at the tables watched, unsure if they were about to witness mercy or execution. Miguel crouched to meet the boy's eyes. "Who's your mother?" he asked softly, voice low, steady as smoke. The boy hiccuped through tears. "Elena. She works at the diner. They said she stole from them." "Please, sir, they're hurting her." "Elena," Miguel repeated, almost to himself. The name struck something in him, a memory, faint and aching. Raul stepped forward, voice tense. "Boss, you can't go. Could be a setup." Miguel's eyes snapped toward him, cold and sharp. "Then I'll see who's stupid enough to try." Without another word, he took the boy's hand. Outside, the air was thick with heat and fear. The boy led him down the narrow alley that cut behind the cantina, where dumpsters overflowed and stray dogs watched from the shadows. The cries came before they saw the scene, raw, desperate, human. 2 men, low-level dealers from the rival Serrano crew, had a woman pinned against the brick wall, her face bloodied, her hands clawing for air. Miguel stopped a few feet away, jaw tightening. The boy screamed, "Mama," and tried to run to her, but Miguel caught his arm gently, his grip firm. "Stay behind me," he said. Then he walked forward. The men turned, startled, one of them laughing nervously. "Easy, amigo. This ain't your—" Miguel didn't let him finish. The gunshot was almost casual. One pull, one body collapsing into the dirt. The second man froze, dropped his weapon, and raised his hands. Miguel's voice was quiet, almost tender. "You lay hands on a woman in my city, and you breathe your last in it." He fired once more. The sound echoed through the alley, swallowed by the desert night. The boy screamed, covering his ears. The woman, Elena, slumped to the ground, trembling, her breathing ragged. Miguel knelt beside her, lifting her face gently with his hand. There was blood on her lips, but her eyes, green, burning with disbelief, met his with recognition. "Miguel," she whispered, "you shouldn't have come." He froze. The sound of her voice was a ghost from another life. 15 years gone, and still he could hear her laughter in the rain-soaked backroads of his youth. Before the violence, before the empire, before everything turned to ruin. "Elena," he said, voice breaking in a way none of his men had ever heard. Raul and 2 others appeared at the end of the alley, breathless, guns raised. They saw the bodies, the woman, the child, and they saw something else too, fear in their boss's eyes. "Get the car." Miguel ordered, his voice cold again. Now. Roll hesitated. Boss, she's. Now. He didn't shout often, but when he did, it was thunder. They lifted Elena into the back seat of the black Suburban, the boy climbing in beside her, clutching her hand. Miguel slid into the passenger seat, staring straight ahead as the engine roared to life. No one spoke on the drive. The headlights carved through the desert darkness, past shuttered gas stations, and the quiet hum of neon motels. Miguel's mind was a storm: memories, guilt, faces he thought he'd buried. Elena had been his first love, the one he left when ambition turned him into something else. When they reached the safe house on the outskirts of the city, he carried her inside himself, laying her on a worn-out couch. The boy followed close, eyes wide with both fear and awe. Miguel cleaned her wounds in silence, the blood staining his hands. "Why were they after you?" he asked finally. Elena winced. "They said I owed money. But I didn't, Miguel. They were looking for something." "What something?" She looked at him for a long moment, pain flickering into hesitation. "Something you lost." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. She just reached out, brushing her fingers against his face like she used to when the world was still soft. The boy, her son, watched them both, his small face full of confusion. Outside, thunder rolled far over the desert. The first drops of rain began to fall, tapping against the windows like whispers. Miguel turned to the boy. "What's your name?" The child hesitated. "Daniel." Miguel nodded. "Daniel what?" The boy's voice trembled. "Daniel Navarro." The name hit like a bullet. Elena closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. And Miguel, Cartel Lord, Killer, Ghost, just stared at the boy, the rain starting to pour outside, realizing the one thing he never expected to find in this cruel desert night: his own son. Morning crawled into the desert like a secret. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the sky still hung heavy and gray over the cracked earth that surrounded the safe house. Inside, the faint smell of coffee mixed with gun oil. A radio murmured in Spanish on the counter, a preacher's voice rising and falling through static. Miguel stood by the window, shirtless, the long scar across his ribs catching the soft light. He hadn't slept. His reflection in the glass looked like someone else, older, haunted. Outside, a lone hawk circled over the canyon ridge, its cries slicing through the silence. Behind him, Elena stirred on the couch. Her wrists were bandaged, her breathing shallow but steadier now. The boy, Daniel, slept curled up in a blanket beside her, one small hand still gripping the edge of her shirt as if letting go meant losing the world. When she finally opened her eyes, Miguel turned, that quiet tension still sitting behind his voice. "You should have told me," he said. Elena's voice was rough. "Told you what?" He stared at the sleeping child. "That I had a son." Her eyes softened but didn't flinch. "You forfeited that right the moment you chose the gun over us." The words hit harder than any bullet. He didn't answer. He just poured coffee into a chipped mug and handed it to her. She took it with shaking hands, the steam blurring her face for a moment. Silence lingered. Only the radio filled the room, an old mariachi tune now, sweet and melancholy. Finally, Miguel spoke low. "Who knew about him?" "No one. I left Santa Fe the week I found out. Went to Albuquerque, waited tables, raised him alone. I told him his father died before he was born." He nodded once, jaw tight. "Then why come back?" "Because the Serrano crew followed me," she said. "They're looking for something, Miguel. Something buried." He frowned. "Buried where?" "In your past." The room felt colder suddenly. Raul entered without knocking, tension etched into his face. "Boss, the Serranos know you moved last night. They're asking around. You made noise. People heard the shots." Miguel didn't look at him. "I'm aware." Raul glanced at Elena and the boy. "And them? You plan to keep them here?" Miguel's gaze hardened. "You questioning me, Raul?" Raul lowered his eyes. "Never, Jeef. Just, it's dangerous." "It's always dangerous." When Raul left, the silence returned. Miguel lit a cigarette and stepped out onto the porch. The desert stretched endless, flat and golden under the morning haze. He remembered bringing Elena out here once, long ago, when he was just a mechanic's son with nothing but his fists and dreams too sharp to hold. She called him reckless. He'd called her his anchor. Now she was back, and she'd brought his son into a world he'd built out of blood. He took a long drag, exhaled, and muttered, "God help me." By noon, Elena insisted on standing. She winced but pushed through it. Daniel followed her everywhere, curious but quiet, his dark eyes tracing every gun, every man who passed through the room. Miguel watched him from the doorway. The kid had his mother's calm, but there was something in the way he looked, a quiet calculation that reminded him of himself. "You hungry?" Miguel asked. Daniel nodded cautiously. Miguel took him to the kitchen. He opened a box of cereal, the only thing remotely childlike in the house, and poured 2 bowls. Daniel ate in silence, legs swinging off the chair. After a moment, the boy asked, "Are you the man from last night?" Miguel hesitated. "Yes." Daniel's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. "Mama said bad men take what they want. Are you one of them?" Miguel's throat tightened. "I was." The boy studied him quietly. "But you stopped." He didn't know how to answer. Before he could try, Elena appeared in the doorway, watching them. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, sorrow, maybe hope, before she turned away. That afternoon, Raul returned with news. They found the 2 bodies. Serranos are moving fast. Word is, they're looking for something called La Caja Roja. Miguel's expression didn't change, but his pulse quickened. La Caja Roja, he repeated. The red box. Elena froze. "You know it." He nodded slowly. "It was real. I thought it was gone." "What's inside?" "Insurance," Miguel said. "Names. Accounts. Enough to burn every cartel from here to the border." "And the Serranos think I have it," she said, realization breaking across her face. Miguel looked at her then, really looked. "Do you?" She met his eyes. "I don't even know what it looks like." But Miguel saw the flicker of something behind her words. Fear. Maybe truth. Maybe both. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Elena, listen to me. If they think you have it, they won't stop. And if you do have it, I need to know now, because they'll come for the boy next." She went still, hands trembling around the edge of the table. "I don't have it," she whispered. But Miguel didn't believe her. That night, wind tore through the desert, shaking the shutters. Miguel sat on the porch again, gun on the table beside his whiskey. Raul joined him, silent for a while. Finally, Raul said, "You can't protect them forever, boss. The Serranos aren't scared of you anymore." Miguel gave a small, bitter smile. "Then they've forgotten who I am." Raul sighed. "Or maybe you have." Miguel's hand tightened on the glass, but he didn't answer. He just looked out toward the darkness, where the desert met the stars. Inside, through the window, he saw Elena sitting on the couch, brushing Daniel's hair as he fell asleep. For a moment, everything softened. He almost let himself imagine a life without the gun, without the ghosts. But then headlights flashed across the far ridge, 2 cars, moving fast. Miguel rose, heart slamming. "Get everyone up," he said. "Now." Raul was already shouting orders as the safe house erupted into motion. Elena appeared in the doorway, clutching Daniel. "What's happening?" Miguel grabbed his weapon. "They found us." The roar of engines grew louder, closer, headlights cutting through the dust. Daniel's small voice broke the chaos. "Are they the bad men again?" Miguel looked down at him, something fierce in his eyes. "Yes, but this time they came for the wrong family." The first bullets hit the walls like thunder, and as the glass shattered around them, Miguel Navarro, once the ghost of Santa Fe, stepped into the open desert night, guns drawn, ready to face the demons he'd made. But behind him, unseen in the flicker of muzzle flashes, Elena reached for something hidden beneath the floorboards. A small, dust-covered red box. The night exploded. Bullets tore through the walls of the safe house, splintering wood and throwing sparks off metal. The sound was deafening, an avalanche of chaos that swallowed breath, thought, mercy. Miguel moved like instinct, like something born for war. He ducked behind the truck, shouting orders in Spanish to his men. each syllable sharp and cutting through the gunfire. Roll was beside him, returning fire with ruthless precision. 3 vehicles, East Ridge. Roll yelled, "I see them." The headlights flickered like ghosts in the swirling desert dust. Miguel's pulse slowed to something cold and controlled. This was his language, the language of survival. But behind him, inside that shaking house, was something he no longer understood: love. Elena. Daniel. He turned for half a heartbeat and saw her silhouette framed in the shattered doorway, clutching the boy close. The red box was hidden in a cloth under her arm, unseen by everyone but her. "Stay down," he roared. She nodded, eyes wide, fear painted across her face. The boy clung to her waist, silent, trembling. Another round hit the truck, a spray of bullets singing through the night. Miguel's men were outnumbered. He could feel it. The Serranos had come heavy. He had maybe a minute before the line broke. He grabbed Roll's shoulder. "Get her out." Roll hesitated. "And you?" Miguel loaded another clip. "I'll hold them." Roll's jaw set. "You'll die." Miguel met his gaze, calm, almost tender. "Then it ends where it began." Roll cursed, but didn't argue. He ran for the house, shouting for Elena. Miguel turned back to the desert, firing into the storm. Each shot cracked like lightning against the endless black. Inside, Elena was moving fast, panic burning in her veins. She shoved Daniel toward Roll. "Take him to the car." "I'm not leaving without you," the boy cried. "You listen to me, Daniel," she snapped, her voice trembling. "You run when I say run. Do you hear me?" He nodded, tears streaking his face. Roll grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the back door, where the second truck waited. Elena turned once more toward the chaos outside. Miguel was still there, shadow and fire against the night. And that's when she felt it. The weight of the box against her chest. The red box. She'd lied to him. She'd always known it existed. Because it wasn't just Cartel secrets inside. It was something far more dangerous. Something Miguel didn't remember. The box wasn't his insurance. It was his sin. She looked down at the small, rusted latch, her fingers trembling. For years she'd promised herself she'd never open it. But now, as the roof shook and gunfire filled the air, she couldn't stop. She pulled back the lid. Inside, beneath a stack of documents and photographs, lay a small silver pendant, engraved with a name she hadn't seen in 15 years. Isabella Navarro. Her breath caught. She pulled the papers free, scanning them through the flickering light. Hospital reports, police transcripts, old photographs of a little girl with bright eyes and dark curls. Miguel's daughter. But the final sheet stopped her heart. Death certificate. Date of death, December 12, 2011. Cause, gunshot wound to the chest. Father, Miguel Navarro. Elena felt the world tilt. She remembered that night, Miguel drunk, a gunfight gone wrong, a stray bullet that had taken his own child. The reason he vanished. The reason he turned into the ghost that haunted every corner of Santa Fe. He'd buried it. Buried her. Buried himself. And now, all of it was back, bleeding through the walls. Elena. Roll's voice snapped her out of it. He was waving from the truck. "We have to move." She slammed the lid shut, hiding the box beneath her jacket. "Go." She grabbed Daniel and ran. They climbed into the truck, just as the front windows of the safe house shattered. Raul hit the gas, the tires kicking up dust as they tore down the dirt road. Behind them, Miguel stood his ground, a single figure against the chaos. The safe house burned, gunfire flashing like lightning around him. And then silence. They drove for miles under the bruised sky. The road curved along the Rio Grande, where the moonlight spilled over the dark water. Daniel had fallen asleep in Elena's arms, his small body limp with exhaustion. Roll kept glancing in the rearview mirror, jaw tight. "We lost them for now." Elena nodded, her heart pounding. He looked at her. "What's in the box?" She turned away. "You don't want to know." He snorted softly. "Lady, I work for the devil. There's not much left I don't want to know." Elena met his eyes in the mirror. "Then you should know the devil used to have a daughter." Roll frowned, confused. But before he could speak again, headlights appeared behind him, distant, but closing fast. "Damn it," he muttered. Elena gripped the box tighter. They won't stop, she said. They can't. That box, it's not just names. It's proof Miguel killed his own child. The Serranos want to use it to destroy him. Raul's face hardened. And you kept that secret all these years. Elena's voice broke. Because I loved him. And because I couldn't let Daniel grow up knowing what his father did. The headlights drew closer. Raul slammed his foot down. The truck roared. But as they hit the next curve, a figure stepped into the road ahead, tall, broad-shouldered, gun in hand. Elena's breath caught. Miguel. Raul swerved, brakes screaming, gravel spraying into the air. The truck slid to a halt just feet from him. He looked like he'd crawled out of hell. Blood on his face, smoke in his hair, eyes blazing. He walked up to the driver's side, motioning for Raul to lower the window. Raul hesitated, then did. Boss. Miguel's voice was low, controlled. Get out. Raul looked at him, then at Elena, then back. You sure? Get out. Raul obeyed, stepping into the dark. Miguel moved around to the passenger side, opened the door, and looked at Elena. Give me the box. She didn't move. Elena. Her hands shook. If you open this, you'll never come back from what's inside. His eyes were endless. I never came back a long time ago. Slowly, she lifted the red box and handed it to him. He held it like something holy, then walked a few steps away. The desert wind howled around them as he flipped the latch and looked inside. The papers fluttered in the wind. The pendant glinted under the moonlight. His daughter's name burned into his mind. He didn't breathe. Behind him, Elena whispered, You weren't meant to remember. Miguel turned, his voice barely human. And you were never meant to keep it. The look that passed between them was full of every life they'd lost, every lie they'd told to survive. Then the first Serrano truck appeared on the horizon, lights slicing through the dark like knives. Miguel lifted the box. Take the boy. Go north. If I don't come back. You won't survive this, she whispered. He smiled faintly. I don't plan to. He turned toward the approaching lights, red dust swirling around his boots. Behind him, Elena held Daniel close, the boy waking to the sound of gunfire once more. As Miguel Navarro raised his weapon, facing the ghosts of his past, the red box slipped from his hand and hit the ground, spilling its contents into the wind. Among the papers and ashes, one photograph fluttered past his feet. It showed a baby in Elena's arms, a hospital tag tied around her tiny wrist. Name, Isabella Navarro. Date of birth, February 10th, 2017. For years after Isabella was supposed to be dead, and for the first time in 15 years, Miguel realized he might not know who his real child was anymore. The desert smelled of metal and rain. The kind of rain that comes after gunfire, sharp, dirty, like the earth itself is bleeding. Miguel Navarro stood in the middle of the dirt road, the headlights of 3 approaching trucks cutting through the darkness. His shirt was torn, his left arm bleeding, but his stance was unbroken. The red box lay open behind him, its secrets scattered across the ground like sins at confession. Behind him, the second truck idled, Raul in the driver's seat, Elena clutching Daniel. The boy pressed his face into her shoulder, whispering something she couldn't hear. Miguel, she called through the storm of engines. Please. We can run. You don't have to do this. He turned his head slightly, rain running down his face. I do. Miguel. He looked at her, and for one terrible, beautiful moment, he smiled. You were the only thing I ever did right. Then he turned back toward the lights. The truck stopped 50 feet away, tires sinking into wet sand. Doors opened. Shadows spilled out, armed men, 30 at least. And from the middle truck stepped Don Serrano himself, white suit, silver hair, eyes like dry glass. Miguel Navarro, Serrano called, voice echoing through the rain. You're a ghost who forgot he was dead. Miguel raised his gun. You came for a box. I came for redemption. Serrano laughed. You can't shoot your way to heaven. Good, Miguel said softly. I'm not aiming for heaven. The first shot cracked through the storm, and the desert erupted. Elena ducked behind the truck, shielding Daniel as bullets tore through the windows. Raul returned fire, cursing between bursts. They'll kill him. Elena screamed. Raul's eyes were grim. He's buying us time. That's who he is. She didn't want to believe it. She couldn't. But through the blur of rain and muzzle flashes, she saw Miguel moving through the gunfire with something savage, almost divine. Every motion was precise, like he'd been waiting years for this one fight. Still, it was too many. One bullet hit his shoulder, another tore through his leg. He stumbled, dropped to one knee, and then somehow stood again. Serrano watched, smiling. "Miguel," he called. "You should have stayed buried with the girl." Miguel froze. "What did you say?" Serrano stepped forward, holding something small between his fingers. A silver pendant, the same one from the box. He dangled it under the rain. "You really think you killed your daughter that night? You poor fool. You only killed mine." Miguel's eyes widened. Serrano grinned. "Isabella Navarro never died. She was taken, raised as mine, and she's standing right beside your little family right now." Elena's breath caught. She turned toward the truck, Daniel wide-eyed, confused. But Serrano wasn't looking at the boy. His gaze was on Elena. The world stopped. Miguel's mind splintered. "No." Serrano's grin widened. "You don't see it? The fire in her eyes? The way she lies as easily as she breathes? You loved her once. I made her mine after you left. She was never Elena Vega. She was Isabella Navarro. Your daughter." Miguel stumbled back, disbelief clawing at his throat. "You're lying." Elena, Isabella, shook her head, tears mixing with rain. "Miguel, please. Tell me he's lying." Her silence was answer enough. He felt the air leave his lungs, his gun trembling in his hand. "All these years. You knew." She stepped forward, desperate. "They told me you killed my mother. That you'd kill me too if you knew I was alive. Serrano took me when I was 8. I didn't remember anything until..." "Until what?" "Until I saw you last night." Her voice cracked. "When you shot those men, I remembered. The way you moved. The way you looked at me. I didn't know how to tell you." Miguel's voice was a whisper, broken and raw. "You're my daughter." Her tears were endless. "And he used me to destroy you." Serrano's voice cut through the rain. "And now you'll finish the job." He tossed her a pistol. It landed at her feet with a wet thud. "Do it, Isabella," Serrano said. "Kill the man who ruined your life." The gun lay between them. Miguel didn't move. He couldn't. His world had already ended. "Don't listen to him," he said softly. "You're not his. You're mine." She shook her head, sobbing. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're the one thing I ever loved," he whispered. For a moment, she almost believed it. Then Serrano shouted, "Do it!" She picked up the gun, her hands trembling. Miguel didn't flinch. He stepped closer, chest bare to the rain. "If it's between killing me and living under him, I'd rather you pull the trigger." She stared at him, shaking, crying, torn between the ghost of a father and the monster who'd raised her. "I can't," she whispered. Serrano snarled, "Then I will." He lifted his gun. The shot came from Elena's hand. Serrano staggered back, eyes wide, blood blooming across his chest. He fell into the mud, eyes open but unseeing. For a moment, no one moved. Rain poured down. Smoke drifted in the cold air. Miguel fell to his knees, breathing hard. Isabella dropped the gun and ran to him, catching him as he started to fall. "Papa," she whispered for the first time in 15 years. He looked at her, smiling through the pain. "You called me that once." She pressed her forehead to his. "I remember now." The sirens came then, distant but growing, red and blue lights flashing on the far horizon. Raul grabbed Daniel and shouted, "We have to go." But Isabella stayed. Miguel's blood was soaking through her hands. "No," she whispered. "Not again." He smiled faintly, reaching for the red box beside him. He pulled one last photo from inside, a picture of Elena Vega holding a newborn baby. "Your mother," he said weakly. "The only truth left in all this." His voice faltered. "Take the boy. Keep him safe. Don't let the world make him like me." "Papa." "Go." She kissed his forehead, sobbing, and stood. Raul was already pulling Daniel into the truck. She turned once more toward Miguel, but he was already looking at the sky, lips moving in silent prayer, or maybe in memory. She ran. The truck roared to life, kicking up red dust as they disappeared down the road. Behind them, Miguel Navarro lay in the rain, the red box beside him, its papers washing away into the mud. The sirens drew closer, and in the dying heartbeat of the storm, the desert went quiet. At dawn, the rain stopped. The road shimmered under pale sunlight. The police found only two things at the scene: a silver pendant marked Isabella Navarro, and a single piece of paper stuck in the mud. A birth certificate. Name: Daniel Vega Navarro. Father: Miguel Navarro. Mother: Elena Vega. The child was both son and brother, and the truth had only just begun to unravel. The sun rose slow over the desert, bleeding gold across the mesas and broken roads. The storm was gone, but its memory clung to everything: the smell of rain and gunpowder, the silence after violence. The world felt hollow without Miguel Navarro. 3 weeks had passed since the shootout near the Rio Grande. The news called it a massacre. Santa Fe whispered about it like a ghost story. The night the cartel boss died protecting a woman and a boy no one could identify. But for Isabella and Daniel, it was something far more intimate. It was the night the past caught fire and burned every truth they'd ever known. They were hiding now, deep in northern New Mexico, a cabin surrounded by pines and snowmelt, miles from any paved road. Raul had vanished after delivering them there, his loyalty to Miguel fulfilled in silence. The cabin was small, a single room with a wood stove and peeling wallpaper. Daniel sat by the window most days, drawing in an old notebook he'd found, his crayons worn to stubs. He didn't talk much anymore. Isabella, still calling herself Elena to the world, watched him from the kitchen table. Her hair was shorter now. Her eyes carried years that didn't belong to her age. She hadn't slept properly since the night Miguel died. His voice haunted her dreams, sometimes tender, sometimes angry, sometimes just whispering her name like it was something fragile. And every time she woke, the red box sat there on the shelf above the stove, empty, cleaned of secrets, yet still heavy with what it had held. She'd buried the truth with him, or at least she tried. But truth doesn't stay buried in the desert. It started with a letter. It arrived one cold morning, slipped under the cabin door. No return address, just her name in block letters. Elena Vega. Her hand shook as she opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Miguel alive, his face bruised, older, sitting in what looked like a hospital room. A note scribbled in the corner in Raul's handwriting. He lived, and he's asking for you. The room tilted around her. She pressed the photo to her chest, a sob breaking loose before she could stop it. Daniel looked up from his drawing, alarmed. Mama. She turned, forcing the tears down, voice trembling. Pack your things, baby. We're going. Where? She looked at the photograph again. To see your father. The road to Albuquerque cut through silence and dust. They drove in an old pickup Raul had left behind, its engine coughing but determined. The desert stretched out endlessly, burnt orange, ancient, merciless. By the time they reached the hospital on the city's outskirts, the sun was sinking low. The building was small, half abandoned, its sign faded and letters missing. St. Mar. Hospi. Isabella parked out front, her heart pounding like it wanted out of her chest. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and loneliness. A nurse at the desk looked up. Can I help you? I'm looking for Miguel Navarro. The nurse's eyes flicked up sharply. He's not supposed to have visitors. Please, Isabella said, voice breaking. He's my... She hesitated, the truth catching in her throat. He's my father. The nurse studied her for a long moment, then nodded toward the far hall. Room 12. But he's weak. Weak didn't matter. Alive was enough. The door was half open. Inside, the light was dim, filtered through an old curtain. Machines hummed softly. Miguel sat propped against the bed frame, his face thinner, his skin pale. The beard was gone, and the fire in his eyes had dimmed, but it was still him. He looked up as she entered. For a heartbeat, time folded in on itself. Isabella. Her voice trembled. I thought you were dead. He smiled faintly. I was. Maybe I still am. She crossed the room slowly, her breath shuddering. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? That I was yours. That I was her. He stared at her for a long time before answering. Because I didn't know if you'd ever want to be. Her eyes filled. You killed my mother. He nodded once, pain flickering through his face. Yes, not with intention, not even with hatred, but with the life I chose. Silence filled the room. Then he whispered, You have her eyes. You always did. She sat beside him, tears falling freely now. And Daniel. He smiled weakly. My son. Your brother. Her breath caught. You knew. He nodded. I figured it out when I saw his drawing. She frowned. Drawing. He motioned toward the nightstand. She reached over and picked up a folded piece of paper, Daniel's sketch from the cabin. It showed the three of them holding hands under a desert sky. A small red box sat between them, glowing like a heart. He said he dreams about a man in the rain. Miguel said softly. Says the man tells him not to be afraid. That's how I knew he was mine. She covered her mouth, choking back a sob. He reached for her hand, fingers shaking. Don't let him grow up with my shadow on him. Promise me that. I promise. He smiled, eyes drifting shut. Then maybe there's hope. His breathing slowed. Miguel, she whispered, panic rising. Don't. He squeezed her hand once. Tell him, the rain cleans everything. The monitors flatlined. The world went quiet again. A week later, Isabella stood alone at the edge of the desert where it all began. The burned-out remains of the safe house still scarred the earth. Wildflowers, pushing through the ash. Daniel played nearby, chasing a tumbleweed with the boundless faith only children have. She held the red box one last time. It was empty now, but she felt its weight. All the lies, all the love, all the ghosts. She buried it beneath the sand, whispering, You can rest now. When she turned, Daniel was watching her. Was he a bad man? He asked softly. She crouched beside him, brushing the dust from his hair. He did bad things, but he also saved us. Will we see him again? She smiled through the ache. Every time it rains. He looked up at the sky. It's not raining. It will. They walked back toward the truck, the horizon burning gold with the coming dusk. As they climbed in, Daniel looked back once more, at the desert, the grave, the ghosts, and said, Mama, the rain cleans everything, right? She nodded, starting the engine. Yes, baby, it does. He smiled. Then it's okay. And as they drove away, the first drop of rain touched the windshield. It fell soft and slow, washing the dust from the world, and with it, the last trace of Miguel Navarro. But in that same storm, far from any road, a man in a black coat walked alone through the desert. Blood dried on his hands, the red box in his grip. He smiled faintly to himself. Because redemption, he'd learned, isn't something you earn. It's something you chase. Forever. The end.